Hi, welcome to Global Info Analytics. My name is Musa Dankwa, the head poster and head of global research at Global Info Analytics. This is the weekly series of our space engagement we've been doing in recent times. One, to throw more light on the current polling data, and also to review the methodologies and the matters arising from this week, and how we're going to explain to you our methodology and approach, and what has driven us to adopt methodology and approaches we have been using in the past 2 years. Before we go into methodology, I would like us to go through the recent polling data we released, the 6th national tracking poll by phone, and then we'll also discuss briefly the special polls we did in Ashanti region and in the Bono region, as well as the Ahafo region, just to see what is going on there in the field outside the telephone polls. And then from there we would begin to discuss the methodology and approach, and what has guided us in adopting this methodology and approach, and what is the lessons to be learned. And I believe the lesson is more important. I mean, it's not a methodology for a political approach. I mean, we're learning here. We want people who want to do research to do the best thing, to adopt the best methodology and refine them as the situation demands. I mean, and for me, it is the ultimate objective of this platform, to really share our experiences among up and coming researchers who would eventually take over from us one day. And we want them to really use the best methodologies that is grounded in science for political opinion poll. And I think this is very important. Political opinion poll. Approaches and methodologies used for social research are not the same as the same tools used in political research. And I want people to really understand the differences here. We'll start with the recent polls we conducted in the national tracking poll with the telephone. That was the last of our national tracking poll that we have done. We're not going to do national tracking poll again, but we may, if we believe there's a need for us to visit maybe a region to see what is happening there, if things are moving faster or just the way they are. And that was the reason why we went back to Ashanti region last week, also Bono and Ahafo, to see what is really happening there. First, let's look at the key issues. I mean, the direction of the country. You see, voters vote for a party or vote against a party based on their perception of where the country is headed. You know, if you believe that voters will reward you if they have a feel that Ghana is heading in the right direction, I think you would be rewarded. 2020, this time around, 55% of Ghanaians said to us that Ghana was headed in the right direction. November 2022, 55% of voters told us in our national survey that Ghana was headed in the right direction. Today, less than 2 weeks before the election, only 29% of voters believe Ghana is headed in the right direction. This is a complete reversal of this view by voters compared to 2020 elections. So if nothing at all, don't even ask them who they will vote for. Looking at the number of people who are saying we are headed in the right way or right direction compared to last 4 years, I think it is clear what these guys will do. I don't even have to ask them who they will vote for. Anybody who believes in data, who understands data, and who can interpret data can tell you that this isn't a good omen. This is not politics, and people don't dispute about the direction of the country percentages or no, they only dispute about Baumia and Mahama race. which is for me a bit hypocritical. Because if you accept those key metrics that they may be true or they are true, then whatever that the data produces, you must believe it. We're not saying that is the outcome we will see. That's what the polls are saying. In terms of our own predictions, it will come Friday. But this gives you a clue. Then if you compare that to the previous week, 62% were saying wrong direction. And the last poll is to jump to 63%. Just a percentage increase. You are heading into a crucial election. The polling numbers should be heading in the right way, not the wrong way. Then when we ask them about their own economic condition compared to last year, those who said better have jumped to 29% from 28%, marginal increase. Those who said it is the same has declined from 21% to 17%. But those who said it is getting worse, or it has gotten worse, or it is worse, has jumped from 51% to 55%. So again, you are heading into a crucial election. The key issue that affects voters is economy, and their feeling about the economy, their own personal economy compared to last year, is not improving. Look, you can be a believer of miracles, but all these are signs of things to come. So when we give you polling numbers, we give you enough data for you to be able to triangulate. We don't just ask who you vote for. There are other questions that are put in there deliberately to be able to go behind the mind of voters and see why they are behaving the way they are behaving. It is very important. So you can triangulate the research. One good thing about poll is that if you're able to triangulate the outcome, if you triangulate and it's inconsistent, it shows that something is not right. Now, when we ask voters about the key issues, 26% of them said, look, it's the economy. 24% of them said jobs. 17% said education. So between economy, jobs, and education, you are looking at close to 65%. People's concern. And when it comes to education, look, when it comes to economy, we know the government's performance on the economy, and the records now is there to show. So voters kind of give the government a low mark when it comes to economic. And then you have jobs. Again, the government in power must provide the job. So voters don't look for the position for jobs. So if your record on job is okay, it means if it's a high priority, it means it will result in vote for you. If you have performed well on the economy will give you a higher vote. Let's look at education. Education too, if you have performed very well, it will give you a plus. But if there are issues in education, they will punish you for the issues. So with regards to education, it's a double-edged sword for the government. For those who look at the entire concept of free education, give the government reward. And for those who said, we've gone beyond the free education, but we're not looking at the challenges of the free education, they blame the government and punish the government for the issues around the free education. So it's a double-edged sword. Then you ask them, who do they believe has the competence, experience, and track record to better manage the economy or the current crisis? Look, this is another question you can use to triangulate what they will tell you down the line in terms of their voting intention. If you trust someone to do a better job, on certain things that are matter, that are key to you. Economy. Certainly, you would like to entrust that person to manage that future of your economy. So, those who will say candidate A is who they trust, they would eventually end up voting for that candidate in 99% of the times. And this is one question you can use to triangulate. And the word triangulate is very important for every research. And on that score, you have Bediako on 6%, Alan on 2% in the last poll, Bawumia on 40%, and then you have Mahama on 52%. So this is an indication of their voting intention. Will this match the actual voting intention? Probably not, but it will be very, very close to it. Let's look at the voting intention when we ask them who they intend to vote for. Mahama 51.9%, Bawumia 40.5%, Alan 2.1%, Mediaku 4.7%, others 0.7%. If you look at the actual score compared to the question of competence, Mahama is just 0.1% shy of the 52%. It's exactly what he got in statistical terms. Then you have Bawumia on 40.5. Bawumia is performing 0.5% above what he got in terms of competence. Alan is also getting 2.1%, about 1% higher than the competence question. Then Nana Kwambediako performs less. So obviously, among the three, he's the least experienced. So you should expect that the number will drop. And see, this is one point that you can use to assess that, yes, the people who were making this choice were sensible. They were rational. They may like Bediako, they may jump and cry his name, but when it comes to competence, experience, and track record, you can see that the number has dropped. Because sincerely, he hasn't got the experience, no track record. As for competence, he may have the competence to do what he wants to do, but this first two, clearly he doesn't have it. So you can see the rationality of voters making these choices. Now, one thing about polling which we must learn is that, you see, when you take a poll in a single period, and in fact, we poll from Monday to Saturday, the polling results we get from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday may differ. So, when you pick a single period poll, and this is for education, a single period poll, it may not reveal the true situation on the ground. Because there are noises that go through the polling, events that may distort the polls. If a candidate is campaigning in certain regions and you are there polling, it will pick that up as a noise. And you see an excessive support for that candidate because of the euphoria. It happens. It is called statistical noises. So once the candidate leaves that region, the polling numbers will settle at a particular point. So those who actually don't know polling, I don't take a single data to be the truth. No, I don't. If I do a poll for you and it shows the dire situation, I'll ask you to repeat it, and to repeat it at least 3 times. They say that if it happens once, it's not a trend. If it happens twice, it's not a trend. But if it happens 3rd time, according to people who know data, it's a reality. It's a reality. Now, when you look at the average poll of the telephone, from the start, Mahama was 53.1%. in the first poll, which was released on October 12th. And by the time we finished the last poll, it was on 51.9%. So where is the actual numbers in telephone poll in terms of where Mahama and Bawumia and the rest are? It does not lie in the single poll. It lies in the average of the period that the polls were conducted using the same methodology. You cannot vary the methodology in between the various dates. You must maintain a consistent methodology. Consistency is very key here. That's why in accounting, if you treat a transaction today as this category, you can't the following year change it again to another category. No, it's not allowed. The same thing applies in statistics and polling. Once you change the methodology, you cannot compare the two. Then you ask yourself, so where is the average of the telephone polls we conducted? Now, over the period of 6 weeks, we have interviewed more than 13,000 people on the phone. Every week, around 2,500. So aggregated over the 6-week period, asking the same questions, with occasional one or two, which is not a national issue, just to test the mood of the country on certain issues. The key questions have remained the same for the 6-week period, showing consistency, the same questions, the same wording. Mahama 52.3, Bawumia 40.4, Alan 1.9, Mediaku 4.7. Then among the first-time voters, in the last poll, Mahama was 48%, Bawumia 39%, Alan 5%, and Mediaku 8%. Now let's look at the party affiliation. You see, elections in Ghana correlates more to the party affiliation of the voter than his profession. Your party affiliation correlates more closely to how you vote than what you do. Hairdressers, tailors, mechanics, engineers. There is no correlation between this profession and elections outcome. And I think we should learn this and learn it very well. It is more probable for MPP supporters to vote for MPP than to say that mechanics will vote for NDC, hairdressers will vote for MPP. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So I think, we should aim to adopt best practices when we're doing things. You can only change things if it really makes sense and if it addresses the specific issues that you have identified within your local setting. And I'll tell you an example of that. Why did we switch to telephone poll weeks before the election? From our experience, we have realized that when you are in the poll, and at the time probably were not very known in this country as pollsters, when you are in the poll in the field close to elections, and that's where campaign activities get a bit frenzy. People are sharing things, and then when you go into the community, sometimes they believe that, oh, you want to go and sample their views so that you will know who to give what to. Yes. So when it gets closer to election, people are a bit cagey with their responses because of our experiences. So we decided, look, to avoid that, we will switch to telephone polls, calling these people and see whether the views on telephone completely differ from when we made them in the field, using our 2020 polling results as a benchmark. So sometimes you may tweak your approach because of local or pertinent conditions that you have observed as a pollster. Another thing we do is that, look, people will tell you the party affiliation. Those who won't tell you the party affiliation, you must not box them into a corner. You must give them an option where they can tell you that we will not disclose. That minimizes the level of untruthfulness you get from voters. If the questions are not broad enough for them to take cover when they want to remain private, then they will begin to tell you lies. But once you have an option of say, I will not disclose, why would he say it's MPP when it's NDC? You see, voters of these days are smart, clever, and they're very truthful. They are not the same voters some people came to meet in this republic. A lot has moved on, but some of us are still stuck in the olden days. Now, among people who said they are MPP, openly said they are MPP, 4% are voting for Mahama, 95% are voting for Baumia, 1% are voting for Alan. For those who say they are NDC sympathizers, 98% are voting for Mahama, but 2% are also voting for Baumia. Among floating voters, Mahama gets 63%, Baumia gets 13%. 5% goes to Alan Chiramachin, and 17% Nana Kwame, 2% others. And for those who don't disclose their party affiliation, 61% Mahama, 24% Baumia, 2% Alan, and 9% Nana Kwame, 3% others. So these are the polling numbers. Now, if you look at the average polls for the region over the last 6 weeks, average, when you average all the polls in the regions over the period, that poll is saying that in Ahafo, Mahama was going to get 59%, Baumia 37%, Alan 1%, and 3% Anakwambidiako, 1% others. This poll is a sharp contrast to what we found just a day of the release of this report. We went back to Ashanti region, Ahafo, and Bono. In that poll, Baumia is around 47% or thereabout, and Mahama 39%. So there's a slight difference, which means that Baumia is leading in that one, but the numbers are quite low. And indeed, the number of calls that are placed at Ahafo is very small because of the size of Ahafo. So you would expect that, because the emphasis, let me say it again, the emphasis of the national tracking poll is not to drill down to the regions, but it's a national tracking poll. And the sample is not sufficient enough to generalize that the sample assigned to Ahafo will reflect the views of Ahafo in reality, because the emphasis is national and not Ahafo. And the sample that was deployed there is Ahafo's contribution to the national view. So let's get this right. If we go to Oforikrom and with a national tracking poll, and we deployed 130 people in Oforikrom electoral area, and those electoral areas say they are voting for somebody, it does not mean that Oforikrom will vote for that person, because you cannot use 130 sample to generalize. But the contribution of that 130 to the national is what gave that person the lead nationally. So let's get this right and stop the unnecessary miseducation, misleading. For me, it is the miseducation that is important to me. We have spent money to educate people at the university levels. For politics, we come and mislead them just because we want to score political points. For me, that's the worrying thing. I have lectured, I was a lecturer at IPS. So it pains me that people put effort to broaden the minds of students. And then for politics, we throw all that into garbage. It is sad. It is very, very sad. So we should stop misleading people. If we don't understand, seek for understanding, seek for explanation, seek knowledge, and it shall be given. So I'm not putting emphasis on this regional analysis of the national tracking poll, because the margin of error when you do that, if you look at our report, is much higher. And we put that in the methodology and approach the page. Any demographic analysis of a national tracking poll or national poll will have a lot more higher margin of error than the overall survey. That statement is not there for just fun. It's a health warning for those who want to drill down the data further. And then, but when you come to Ashanti region and Greater Accra and Central and Eastern, the samples that go to these places are sufficient, in my view, to give you a better view of what is happening in those regions than the samples assigned to Northeast, Savannah, OT. Well, those people have a very small population, and for that matter, the samples that go to them is a bit small. So when I'm putting emphasis on the regional numbers, I tend to put value on Ashanti region numbers, Eastern region numbers, Greater Accra, Western and Central. Now, in the Ashanti region, Mahama was on 27% and Baomia on 65%, Alan 3%, Bediako 5%. When we did the field survey with 3,000, almost 800 respondents in all the 47 constituencies in Ashanti region, Mahama was on 29%, which is about 2% higher than what the telephone poll gave him. And remember, our even margin of error for the entire poll was 1.8. So if we add 1.8% to 27%, you are getting close to 29% that the field poll testified. And if you look at the field poll, that gave Baumia 68%. If you add the 1.5%, 1.8 margin of error to 65% that he got in the telephone poll, you are almost getting the 68% Baumia got. So it gives me confidence that my small sample I deployed over the telephone randomly across Ashanti region, when I use 3,800 field survey, the results were identical. It shows that, or it proves that, the telephone methodology in large sense works if you do it well, if you know what you are doing. And I'll come and show you how we did it. So the regional numbers are there. And based on that, we are saying that our position that Mahama is going to win the election has not changed. And indeed, next Friday, we will release our forecast or our predictions. And let me explain. I think something needs to be understood. Opinion polls are not predictions. They are the polls. Because you can't be changing predictions every week. When a poll is done every quarter, it is an opinion poll, tracking poll, seeing how things are changing. I'm quite shocked to hear that people are saying that, how do you do opinion polls every week? For God's sake, in America, it is done daily in some cases. We have daily tracking poll for the approval of the US president dating back to 1950s. Every day, there's a poll. So for someone to say this, it means that they are novices in opinion poll. They haven't read a lot about opinion polls. And indeed, the country that leads in opinion polls are the US and the UK. It's been done for more than 70-something years. So if you're doing things and you're not learning from them, I don't know who else you're going to learn from. Now let's look at the data. I want us to see the 2020 elections or 2024 election in the context of the three key issues. Look, if you watch the exit polls from the US, those who said economy was their number one issue, who were they voting for? Who did they say they would vote for in the opinion polls? And how did they vote for in the actual exit polls? Those who mentioned economy were mentioning Trump, not Kamala Harris. And on the day, the exit polls show that those who said economy was the key factor were going for Trump heavily. People are rational. Once I'm worried about something, I'll vote for the person I believe can handle that better. On the economy, Mahama is 55% and Bawumia is 38%. Remember, overall, it is 51.9 for Mahama, 40.5 for Bawumia. So you can see the differences between the specific issues and how people are voting. On the jobs, Mahama is 55, Bawumia 38. On education, Mahama is 49, Bawumia 43. Isn't this logical? Isn't this providing further evidence that the people are being truthful? And they are truthful because education, MPP get a lot of credit for the free education. So if you have Mahama leading education by wide margin, then that could be an evidence of a problem in the data. Because in reality, that doesn't happen. Yes, the gap is about 6 points on education, whereas on the others is quite larger. So you see how you can triangulate research and find whether the data is sincere and it's coming from the raw data of people that were interviewed. Look, without good data, without raw data, no poster can tell you how many people who said the economy were voting for Mr. A or Mr. B. And I think media themselves must equip themselves with capacity to discuss polling. Look, the fact that you are a presenter on TV or radio doesn't equip you to really quiz the pollsters. It doesn't. There are people who are associating your team. Let them handle that. But in Ghana here, we know what happens. But at least beyond this lesson, we have a lot to learn as a country. Now, we can even give you those who say economy and they are male, who they are voting for. If the data is there, every poster must be able to provide you with this kind of cross-tab. It's called cross-tab analysis. If the data doesn't exist, no one can give you this analysis because it will not add up in the end. How many women on economy, women who said Mahama is 55, those who said Bawumia is 39, and those who said jobs, female 54 for Mahama, 39 for Bawumia. Those who say jobs and they are male, Mahama 56, Bawumia 37. So there are enough information for you to grill the data and for you to test the credibility of the data. Forget about the headline numbers. Those are not where the issues are. Drill the data and you see insight that will tell you more. Now, one thing that we do, which we have always done, is to see how many people have defected from Ronaldo and gone elsewhere. It gives you the sense of direction of where the election is going to go. Because remember, we have only 700,000 first-time voters and over 18 million older voters. So nobody can use first-time voters to win this election. No. They are mere 5% of the total population who would vote. So if you see what the older people are doing, then you understand where the election is going. Let's look at those who voted for Nando in 2020, who are voting again, just them. I mean, if you line up those who cast their vote in 2020 and say, how are you voting this time around? This is where you see the problem. We give you enough evidence to show you why somebody is leading or why somebody is behind in the poll. 20% of those individuals who voted for Ronaldo in 2020 have changed their mind and not voting for MPP's candidate. 20%. Folks, 20% of somebody's vote in 2020 is no joke. Bawumia is getting only 71% of that vote that Nado used to win the election. If we are to ask these people to queue again, 3% of them are now doing Alanchira Martin, and 6% are doing Nana Kwambidiako. So you see how Nado's vote has split. So you can't lose this volume of vote. Even if you win by 80% the first time voters, it's not going to be enough. These are the underlying reasons for what we are seeing in the polls. And this data, we have been capturing this for the past 2.5 years. 2.5 years. It fluctuates. Sometimes it goes 20%. And in fact, these numbers differ region by region. In some regions, about 30% have defected. When it comes to JM, he is still getting 97% of his voters. 97% of his voters are staying with him. 2% have gone to Bawumia, and 1% Nana Kwambidiako. So you can see from this, if we are casting vote among the older voters, Mahama is clearly ahead. Clearly ahead. If he's clearly ahead, and we don't have enough first-time voters, it means the dynamics will not change. Because the first-time voters are not significant enough to swing the election to Bawumia's favor, because he is so much behind among the older voters who voted in 2020. That is where the problem is. And among those who don't disclose their party affiliation, still, Mahama is 51%, Bawumia 28%, 4% for Bediako, and 13% for 4% for Alan, and 13% for Bediako. Remember, this group were 10% with a sample. 10% with a sample. And we said that these people are disgruntled MPP voters. Mostly. Not all of them. Mostly. So if you are to, add their... No, sorry. Those who did not disclose who they voted for in 2020, 51% of them are voting for Mahama. Those who don't disclose who they voted for, they feel shy to say that I voted for this person. But this time, he's telling you that he's voting for Mahama, or Bawumia, or Alan, or Bediako. But he doesn't want to tell you that this is the person I voted for. And from this, you can conclude that this may be Nana voters as well. Now, again, we took a critical analysis of the same group of people who are voting on the ethnic basis, how they voted in 2020 and how they are voting now. This, if you remember in the US elections, they were comparing how the Hispanic voters voted for Trump or Biden in 2020 and what they are telling the pollsters that they will do now, to compare to see who is making ground among the key block of voters in America. The Hispanics, the blacks. This helps you to understand the race better. In 2020, 60% of the accounts said they voted for. In fact, it is 67% of accounts who said they voted in 2020. They said they voted for Ronaldo. Mahama got 30%. And accounts represent 49% of the population of this country. So it's very important that it's very crucial. If you win 67% of this 49%, is a big number. Mahama got 30%. Today, in the latest poll, Mahama gets 42% of account voters. That is 12% improvement. Always look at the numbers. Who is improving and who is losing ground to the other candidates compared to last year? You cannot just look at this year's election alone without looking at last year and see what the changes are. When you see the changes, you know where the race is heading. And for example, if the results from elections begin to come on the 7th. Just compare the polling station results of 2024 to those of 2020, and you see where the race is heading. In other countries where they have good data, the results will be put into the system, and then quickly you can see the trend. Oh, last time he won there by 20,000. Now he won by only 2,000. You know there's trouble. Nobody, you don't have to wait until the results are declared. No. Once you are underperforming your predecessor or your former candidate, you know you are in trouble. As simple as that. You don't need to wait for EC to declare anything. Wait and look at the pattern. And by how much is he underperforming, and by how much is the other one overperforming? When we look at the polling data from exit poll in the US, that was when we knew Trump was going to win. He was overperforming in every single demography. And that's a clear win that this guy is going to win. We don't have to wait. And if you look at the Ghana base, Nando got 39% and Mahama got 59%. Now Mahama is getting 70% of the Ghana base and Bama is getting 23%. So Mahama is up 11, Bama is down 16. If you take the ever group, Nando got 36%, Mahama got 61%. Today, Mahama is getting 71%, and Bama is getting 18%. Bama is down 19%. So among the major ethnic group, Akan, he is down 19%. Among another major group, Ghana Dangbe, he is down 16%. Among others, he is down 19%. Among Mori Lagbani, he is down 18% compared to where Nangado was. These are the facts. We are giving you enough data to be able to see the data in a way that it has never done before. It's never been done before. So you don't wait till election day to know what is going to happen. These are the early warning indicators. So when we say that we know how this thing is going to end, it's because we have seen enough data consistently showing this performance across 2.5 years of polling. We didn't just show up. No. And then you ask people whether they could change their mind between when we interview them and election day. You have 90% saying no, they won't change their mind. The election has already been cast in people's minds. Nobody's winning new vote. Nobody's winning new vote. Those hyper things are just maybe trying to galvanize those who may not want to vote. Then it's okay, let me go and vote. But those people, if they go there, they'll vote their way, they'll vote their party anyway. So this shenanigans that is being done by both parties is to galvanize their base and nothing more. No more souls are being won. No. Only 4% of the voters we interviewed said that they are likely to change their vote. Only 4%. They will change the outcome of the race. 6% said that they were neutral about changing their mind. And some of these things, unless there's a huge scandal, a scandal about a candidate, things that were not available in the media, if they surface, those are things that can fundamentally alter the course of the race. Yes. Other than that, the trend line is steady. You can believe it, or you believe your own emotions. That's a different matter. At Global Info, we don't do emotions. It's pure data. Because our client is not just Ghanaians. There are people who rely on our data to invest or to advise their investors. We have no business lying to anybody. And if you care to know, for those who are academicians, PhD students, or PhD professors, whatever, if your work is cited by other researchers, it shows your credibility. If your work is, before they even cite your work, they would have gone through your methodologies, scrutinize it, probe it, punch it, because they want to rely on the outcome of your work. And for that matter, if they're not happy with the methodology, why should they cite your work? No, they won't. And if you believe that people like Barclays Capital or companies like Goldman Sachs, if you don't know them, go and Google them, who they are. They will risk their reputation and come to Global Info and say, could you permit us to reproduce your work in our research findings for our investors who buy our sovereign bonds? They're not joking. They're not doing a zoo, a za, or it's possible there. No, it's a serious business. So we will not build ourselves with propaganda to be doing things just because we want to hype somebody. No, we have no business in doing that. Polling is a serious business. We are market research and data research company and what we call political risk forecasters. That's what we do. We're not here to do MPP and NDC's work. If it favors you, fine. If it doesn't, so be it. No amount of insult, no amount of bragging and misinformation will change anything. And I think they know. And look, before we came into this business, we know what we were up against. We are doing this to build a brand that in the future, it could be the best polling company on the whole continent. We're not looking to do anything for a few days and disappear. No, it's a company as a brand. Now, let me zoom now into methodology. And I think people must learn, whether you are MPP researcher, NDC, and those of us who are doing academic work. 6 months ago, I had a call from a US polling consultant. And I won't mention his name. He wanted to do something with Ghana's election. And he wanted to see which of the pollsters he can work with. I think that time I was in London visiting my family and they called. We had about an hour's meeting. They were probing my methodology in the field survey, because in America there's no field opinion poll. So those who are saying that face-to-face opinion, face-to-face survey is the best, well, it's not done anywhere in the world. If it's those who are doing face-to-face interviews, it's just a small sample survey they are doing in towns. All the surveys have moved virtually to digital and telephone. Nowhere in the world do telephone polls in advanced world, do field service. It's out of date. Why is it out of date? Because look, people want to be spoken to when they are comfortable to speak to posters. And people who are more relaxed on telephone and can tell you a lot more than they will do in the field. If you say you want to see the body language of the voter when he gives response, you're not doing social research. If my body language says I'm lying about my choice, what are you going to record when you're doing quantitative study? Not qualitative, quantitative. I said Baomia, but you feel my body language might be Mahama. What are you going to record? This is not a quantitative study. This is quantitative. So the body language doesn't matter. It does not matter. Is he being truthful to you? When you see the person in the field, and you are talking to the person in the field, sometimes even if you want to do a random sampling in the field, it's difficult. Sometimes you must see somebody who might be his turn to stop. The person wouldn't want to stop. Or you think, oh, this person looks angry, I won't stop him. So the randomness is not perfect. Now, when you are using telephone, you have no idea which number the phone is going to call, whether a he or she. You don't know. You can't see the person's face, and you engage the person. Look, one thing about us is that, you see, being known is a plus. When we call people on the phone, we call them and tell them we are calling from Global Info Analytics. Yes, and they know who we are. By God's grace, we've been in the media, we've been helping the voters, helping the country understand where the people are. So that itself has helped us to reach out to people who are comfortable talking to us. So they know that we are not appendage of any political party. They know. Sometimes when you call them, they say, hey, so it's true that you call people. Yes. We don't sit in our offices and pretend we are calling. We have a team of 15 call center agents. Some working from remote, some in the offices. So when they sit down and they make some of these things, it's like these guys have no idea. So telephone polls under this situation, under certain circumstances, is the best. And it's cheaper too. We don't get funded by anybody. So it is cheaper for me to call people on the phone than sending people in the field to Walwale. Some even take pontoon to go to places that we have to pick to go if we have to go and interview them. The risk involved. And you see them when we sometimes share their pictures going to the field. People get accidents on a motorbike and they get wounded. We have to compensate them for what they've gone through. They are volunteers. And they do that because they believe we are doing something right. Volunteers across the country, network of them. And so, how can you do a poll like that? We don't use the old style paper pen poll that some of you have been using. No. We are highly digitized. In fact, we use some of the systems used by big companies. We don't use paper. We don't do coding of the responses. It's automatic. Once the poll is completed, we are seeing the real-time result. Every interview that comes through, we'll see it, we can analyze it. So when we are advising our clients, if we're doing market research, we don't wait to finish the data before we report, before we tell the clients what to do. We are able to quickly spot something that the client can intervene before the report comes out. Real-time action. We don't wait until 6 weeks, 5 weeks, we do a paper report, and then, no, it will be too late for some companies. They want to take quick measures to address certain things that is happening. So, the political opinion polls are different from market research or from other research that people do. Because the randomness, and also look, when we publish political opinion poll, we tell you the party affiliation of the respondents. It's for a reason. To see whether we have oversampled MPP or oversampled NDC. If you deploy 100,000 people, and out of that 100,000, you sample 50% MPP. In reality, what is the proportion of MPP in the country? From our record, openly is 35%. So you can have a sample size of big sample size, but how is it skewed towards a key determinant of the outcome of the election? People vote because they are MPP or they sympathize with MPP or NDC or floating voters. So if you skew the sample in that direction, you are finished. You are finished. So for those of you who are learning research, it is very, very important you manage the sample very well, impartially. You must be very, very, you must take emotion out of the data. If you can't do that, believe me, you will fail, because it might be your party. So you will not be brave to show them what they need to see. But they need to see that data. So take emotion out of data if you are a researcher. Don't attach emotion to your data. Take your feelings out. It may be painful at times, yes. But that's the truth. That's the reality. And then you have the field survey. How do we do our field survey? In the field survey, because we cannot apply the randomness on the computer, it's a field. How do you do it? First, we have first step. The first step is to decide the sample size. Look, your view of the race determines the sample you want to run. I am confident to use 3,000 sample for Ghana opinion poll. Somebody can use a bigger sample, that's fine. But the sampling and the margin of error are quite important. If the race is very close, a close race, you cannot have a margin of error which is the size of the gap. So you have to increase the sample size so that the margin of error will be smaller. Because applying the margin of error to Mr. A or Mr. B should not change the outcome of the race dramatically. So when I know that somebody has about 10 points lead, why should I have a margin of error of 1%? Or maybe margin of error of you see? If somebody is leading by 15 points, I can even afford to have a 5% margin of error, because that 5% is not significant to turn the race on its head. So the sampling is driven by your understanding of the race and what you will be comfortable dealing with in terms of the confidence level and the margin of error. I chose sample size. If we are in the field, we do 5,000-6,000 because it's a human interaction with people face to face. But when I'm doing telephone, I can bring down my sample size quite significantly because I have the assistance of computer to do the random for me. And then when we decide the sample size, then we say which regions must get more of the sample. Obviously, those with the highest voting population get the highest, and so on and so forth. Once we've done that at the regional level, then we come to the national level, then we come to the regional level. Regional level, we have 3,000 sample. Where should the sample be deployed? We don't want to spread the 3,000 sample across 47 constituencies in Ashanti region. It will make the sample for each location very, very small, and you lose the granular and the quality of the data you will get. So instead of doing all the Ashanti region 47, we randomly say pick about 30% of the constituencies in Ashanti region. Randomly. Random is key here. Not look at Asawasi, oh, it was a strong NDC, let me pick it. That is how some people do their polling. Oh, NDC, let me put one NDC area, let me put one MPP area. It does not matter to us. We pick randomly. We don't have to pick Asawasi. We don't have to pick Secretary Plains. We don't have to pick New Dubiasi. We don't. In fact, we can pick a sample in Ashanti region, which has none of the NDC constituencies. And the results you get will be the same when you even poll some of the NDC areas. It doesn't change anything. Statistically, it doesn't. It doesn't. Once we've done the regional sample allocation, then we come to the constituency sample allocation. And look, for those of you who are learning, we will open up. You see, some of these methodologies, they are commercial. So if we are telling you how we do it, we don't mind getting people coming into the frame to do things right. And for you as young researchers, take this. Once we pick the region and know that we're going to go into 14 or 15 constituencies, the question is, where should you deploy the 130 samples in Ofodukrum, or in Subin, or in Inshiaiso? Where should you deploy the sample that has been assigned to these people? Do you look at the constituency, oh, go here because MPP does well here, or go here because NDC does well here? No. There are two approaches we take. Two approaches. We can either randomly pick 3 electoral areas if the sample to that region is around 150. So we'll take 150 and say, pick 3 electoral areas in that constituency for me randomly. You could pick one NDC area, you could pick 2 MPP area, or may pick all MPP area. But it's very unlikely in the constituency in Ashanti region, all electoral areas will be NDC. So people should understand the randomness of these things. And it's done by simulator, not by us. We have an Excel built simulator that does this for us. So it picks 3 electoral areas. Then you look at the population of those electoral areas and share the 150 to them according to the size of their voter register. So if Ahojo electoral area has more voters, then they get more of the sample that you have given to that constituency, in that order. Or you can say, I'm going to pick the top 3 electoral areas or top 4 electoral areas in this constituency and spread the sample to them. Remember, the focus is not the constituency. You are doing a national sample or national survey. So how you pick it at that level, so long as it's random or it's in a very systematic way, it is fine. Or in some cases, we arrange the electoral areas to see the one with the highest voting population and the lowest voting population. So what we do sometimes is, okay, let me take one from the upper limit where the highest constituency and come and take the ones in the middle population. You take one from the middle. You can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you pick randomly. You pick the number and you do that. You count and you pick. So that if there is a structural differences in the way the the most populous areas vote from the mid population vote and the low population vote, you pick that feeling sentiment from that. And you can even analyze whether the voting pattern of the heavy populated area is the same as the middle or the same as those at the lower bottom. It also gives an additional insight to see how the urban areas are voting, how the rural areas are voting, and how the peri-urban are voting. So these are the things we do. And this goes beyond identifying somebody and you go, look, we sometimes do purposeful sampling. What do I mean by purposeful sampling? You want to target certain population, certain demography. You cannot just do randomly and get them. If you want to sample the views of Christians, and you go to a church, that is purposefully sampling. If you want to know the views of Muslims, you go to places you can find Muslims. That is purposeful sampling. If you want to know the views of Zongos, you don't poll either side or not Zongo and say Zongo views. No. Or you look for people who look like Zongo people and say, no, you poll people from electoral areas that are Zongos. So if you are polling Ayawasu is Nima, you must as well do it in Kanda. How many people in Kanda are Muslims? But if you want to know the views of the Muslims in Kanda, you come to Nima. 441. That is the center of Zongo, or what we call the Muslims. If you want to know the views of Muslims in Medina, you don't go to Medina O Road, Medina 0.5 or Riz. You come to Medina Zango. That is purposefully sampling. Recently, we did a sample or survey of middle class. In our polls, we don't want to be asking people how much they earn because they will be a bit intrusive. So we wanted to do purposeful sampling by profiling people who look like upper class and interview them. Where did we go? We went to the malls. ANC Mall, Accra Mall, certain malls, Junction Mall, this mall and that mall. And did we do it by when people are buying things? No. We stood in the car park and looked at the car you drove and you stepped down from, and we interview you. We didn't interview window shoppers. No. So you are purposefully identify people who look like upper class and interview them. And when we finish the data, the survey, what was so interesting was that we got to know that most of the upper class are Pentecostals and attend charismatic churches. Yes, yes. And in fact, people who go to those churches know. But if you come out from this survey and realize that who you have interviewed say they belong to the traditional Orthodox churches, then you know there's wrong with the data. Because historically, factually, data, those who are upper class, very rich people, they go to the Pentecostal and charismatic churches. It's a fact. And we had their views. So this is how you do purposely sampling. It's not bad. It depends on what you are looking for. You are looking for the views of certain demography. But if you are doing national election, you can't purposely sample people by carpenters, by masons, because election outcomes does not depend on the profession of those people. Election outcomes depend mostly correlate with party affiliation, not even gender, not even age. In every part of the world, this is the fact. So, for those of us who want to learn, and this platform is for learning, that's why we've opened up a methodology. We're able to be able to see how we do things. So, even if you work for a party, you are doing research work, trust me, employ the most vigorous methodology. Eventually, you'll be vindicated. Even if data is not pleasant and is the truth, so be it. So be it. You know, and I believe that I believe that we are learning. We want to learn. And for those of us who work with data, we want to see more insight about the data, not just about who is leading, but the demographic analysis, the gender, the issue, the economy issues, and so on and so forth. Look, one of the data we just looked at recently, even in Ashanti region, for those who mentioned betting tax as one of the reasons why they will vote, in Ashanti region, over 50% of them are voting for Mahama. Those who mentioned betting tax, those who mentioned e-levy, in Ashanti region are voting for Mahama. So it gives you a different angle of data to see on which issue a candidate is very strong at, on which issues is weak at, and then you can find strategies to address his weaknesses and also to kind of enhance his strength and push more of the strength. And if you look at the polling data, in the campaign from both sides, look, if you look at the MPP campaign, they have realized that they have a lot of goodwill in education, so the campaign is focusing on education. It's clear. If you look at the NDC, they've realized that Bahamas' weakness is economy and jobs. They're also hitting there. It's fine. That is how parties use data. And the behavior of every party and their campaign is read through the prism of data. Sometimes if you hear them pushing certain narrative, it's because the poll probably says that if they push that narrative, it could work. So they keep saying the same thing, over and over again. If you look at sometimes morning show program, and they give people chance to talk about something, just introduction. LBC last week were talking about some expired rice and this and that. They were hammering on it. Maybe their poll shows that people are concerned, who are worried. When they say good morning, they will start saying that. If you look at MPP too, when they say good morning, they will start straight to education. So that is what the campaign people do. They say, look, who to be hammered on this. This one, you can't talk about, so keep quiet. That is why DMB campaign is not talking about economy. Simple as that. It's the polling data. They are all right. You must fight the campaign on your strength, not on your weakness. And the rest is left for the public to decide where they go. So our methodology is always open, vigorous, and transparent. And we will give you everything. We even give you the sample size for every location. So that if you want to go and repeat the survey on your own, behind our back, you have everything you need to go and replicate it. That is what research is about. You do not hide the methodology, because look, if you are doing masters, MS, whatever it is, your methodology is the first thing people look at. And if you can put it on open, I mean, the rest I won't even continue. And I'm very confident that our methodology that we've been advertising openly has been scrutinized by Fitch, has been scrutinized by those guys who are equipped and competent in understanding statistics and polling than even us. When you are doing your research and you cite someone's literature, that means you trust the person's work. And the best way to judge a researcher is how often his work has been cited by others. That's the measure. That's the measure. Not whether MP people are jumping about it or NDC people are jumping about it. That doesn't mean anything. NDC will say things to make them feel happy. MP will say things to make them feel happy. That's it. That's what they will all do. Does it matter to us? No. So we do our best. I mean, for me, I'm very passionate about educating people. Very passionate about educating people. So this job is not just about being a global info, but also it's a crusade to begin to educate our people for a better country. So that when they are out there doing research, they will bring out the truth. So we will act on the truth. If you go and misdiagnose a patient, you will give the person the wrong prescription and the person could die. That is similar to what opinion polls does. If you misdiagnose and people act based on misdiagnosis, believe me, there will be chaos. There will be consequences. All right, on this note, I will end it here and allow people to ask questions. Today, I'm so tired, I have a lot of things to do, so we'll only do 30 minutes. And then we'll end or let's say 45 minutes, and we'll end the discussion. Yes, I'm gonna add as much as possible people so they can speak. Okay, you have the mic.
Musa, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Okay, so I see you spent a lot of time trying to explain away all the criticism, but as a researcher and a professional, ignore the noise. There's too much noise in the room there. I think yesterday I was on a program and I tried to explain to them that you haven't come up with your prediction yet. All you've done is collect data. One of the things you need to also emphasize to the Ghanaian populace and the Ghanaian population is that informatics is a whole new science, okay? And the data you're collecting varies. You're collecting data for young people, Muslims, and all that. And there are sort of companies that will be interested in not selling pork at a specific place. They come to you, they pay for the data. People who are interested in just dealing with charismatic people, they come to you, they pay for the data. So your business is not politics. You're just adding the politics to it to make it a difference. So after, with time, they will pick up, everybody will understand what exactly you're doing. It's the season of silliness. It's a season of foolishness. All sort of excuse. The only thing I would like to know is, I know your prediction will come out maybe 28. How are you factoring the ground game, the juju tricks and magic? So, so if you look at one of the things Elon Musk did very well for Trump was that he did a lot of get out the vote campaign, get out the vote mobilization. Okay. I mean, it's obvious there's something, some of the economics or some of the numbers are not adding around well, because for the incumbent party to be at their stronghold for 3 weeks in a row, it tells you
it's a problem.
It tells you the equation is not adding up. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm seeing all sort of people predicting that if they're able to do a gap of 1 million from Ashanti region, the rest is history. Because the last time Volta region only had 60 something % turnout, and they need to have a more turnout before we will make up for the difference. And things like, maybe somewhere along the line, we also need to have electoral votes to counteract some of this nonsense here, you know. But the juju and tricks, get out the vote. How are you compensating for that? Because I hear there are people who on the day they have 100 buses, you get $50, 50 cedis, you get some rice and go vote on the bus. You get on the bus. Those things, how do you compensate for that? And I'll mute myself.
You know, we do have data. When we spoke to voters long before this campaign season started about how they will react or what they would do if they were offered inducement. And we have this data region by region. So we know the regions that are susceptible to taking inducement and voting for a candidate, and those that will take it and punish you. So we're going to look at, we're moving into our prediction phase, which will take a lot of data, some of this data, look at those data in detail, region by region, and applying them to the regions rather than national. Because we don't have global, if you apply global figures, you're not going to get things right. You have to zoom into regions and see how the region is behaving. And even the turnout model people are using, look, no region is going to behave the same way as a national. You have national average. But if you're going to apply the turnout to certain regions and see if they win X there, then the turnout must be specific to that region, not national average. So these are the kind of things that we're going to be doing behind the scene to be able to come up with the good predictions. I will not be able to sit here openly and tell you exactly what we're going to do, because that would be too much of commercial secrecy that we need to keep it in-house. That would be what would differentiate us from the rest, because it will make our numbers more closer to reality than others, and that is what will give us the credibility going forward. Yes, we taking some of those things into account, but we don't believe in this election. People are just deceiving people. I'm telling you. The sentiment on the ground, money is not going to win this election. Money, in fact, we have seen a candidate, a very good candidate, polling very well 3 months ago. We went back and the person is struggling in the polls. Why? The person's campaign has moved from what he or she is known for doing into monetization. And the person has lost floating voters there. You only give that to energize your base. You would end up driving away floating voters. They must think twice. Ian.
The thing is that people don't know companies like Info Analytics worked in Ghana 2008. Okay. Info Analytics, what do you call it? Oxford Analytics. They did some work in Ghana. Even James Carville consulted for one of the parties in Ghana. That's one of the things people don't know, that some of these parties privately pay for these American posters.
They do.
Yeah, they do. And if you don't know this sounds novel to them, what you're doing. Okay. And anytime it doesn't, obviously they need to ginger their base and say he's talking nonsense. But what they forget, like you said, Goldman will come to you and say, hey, we're going to market a pork product. Where do we look in Ghana? We need data for that. And that's where you make your bread and butter. And they don't understand that.
They don't. They don't. And in fact, look, we've had clients come from abroad asked us to do poll for them. We don't. They are white people, Europeans, Americans. We don't know who their clients are, and we don't care who the clients are. We poll for them, give them the report, walk away. So for us, it's our business. And for those who care, you just go to our website. You see some of the clients we have on our books.
You
The clients we have on our books.
earlier mentioned trends, okay, and I read a little bit, and I didn't want to bring it because he's also a competitor, Professor Sapon's analysis, okay, and I think some of the reason why he mentions tailors and mechanics and dressmakers and shoe sellers and this is that he takes it from the original writing of the Ghanaian constitution where the district assembly collected data from people like that. I don't see where the relevance is, but that's fine. Okay. He goes into some of these things, and I think you also mentioned it earlier on. The trend analysis. He tends to appropriate the last election as a base for what they're getting. Now, this is what I think the flaw is. The numbers Nanado got 2016 was a combination of 40 years of politics. Nobody in the history of Ghana can accommodate that. Nobody in the history of Ghana can repeat that margin. Okay? And the sentiment at that time with the doomsday, the dollar, the middle class, everybody was tired with it. So for that to be the starting basis for this election is very, very worrying. I don't know what you think about that.
You know, I don't want to specifically address issues that he raised on that kind of thing. I think, look, this election, you can disagree with me. It will be an election never had before in the Fourth Republic. If 2016 was a jugular, let's wait for 2024. That's all I can say.